Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this AMA Ask Me Anything inside the Ivy League. My name is Bess. I work with Appleruth Tutoring Services, and I will be your host for this panel this evening. Right now, we're actually going to send out a poll to everyone participating so that we can get a sense of where you all are coming from, why you're here. So go ahead and take a look at that poll and fill that out for me. And actually, while that's happening, I am going to allow our panelists to introduce themselves. Panelists, go ahead and tell us your name, your pronouns, if you'd like to share them, the school that you're going to, and what class you are in. And Tess, we will start with you.
Okay, hi everyone. My name's Tess. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a rising sophomore at UPenn.
Thank you. And Ileana.
Hi, I'm Ileana. I go to Cornell. I'm a rising senior. And yeah.
Excellent. And Lauren?
Hey, my name is Lauren, pronoun she, her, hers, and I'm a rising junior at UPenn.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, for everyone who is participating, you can actually talk to us using the Q&A feature. So we can see and talk to each other. We can't see you, but we can talk to you. If you have questions for any of our panelists at any time, please click on the Q&A, and I will be reading those as we go and submitting some of the questions to the panelists. If you have a specific question for Lauren or for Ileana or for Tess, you can actually ask them directly, and they will be able to type a response to you if they would like. So everybody, I am going to ask, I'm going to start and give you a little bit of time to think of some questions for our panelists. I'm going to start with this. If the students watching tonight could visit you on your campus, where would you take them so that they could get a real sense of the personality of your school? And I will start with whomever would like to answer that question first.
I have an answer for Penn.
Right.
I think I would say Locust Walk because it's just this large stretch of brick that goes straight through main campus and a large majority of campus in general. And I think you get a good survey of everything that Penn has to offer, from dorm life and dining halls to academic buildings and even some frats and sorority houses, if that's what you're into. I think especially between classes when non-COVID times are a thing, you definitely see everyone from all walks of life at Penn, which is not something you could say in maybe a classroom or a club.
So Lauren, I feel like you cheated because you were like, I would take them on the place that shows them everything. That's very good. Okay, so Tess, I'm actually curious if you have a similar answer to that.
I mean, I would agree with that just because Locust Walk is like very iconic to UPenn. Though I wouldn't say I'm as qualified to answer that question since I experienced my freshman year like during the pandemic and they didn't let us go in like any of the buildings. So for me, a lot of the answers that come to mind are like the different sculptures around campus or like the dining halls, which were like the one of two places they let us go into. So
I really like both of those answers because Tess is like, this is what it's like in dire times. And Lauren is like, this is everything. Fantastic. Ileana, tell me what you think for Cornell.
So for Cornell, I would definitely take them to the West Campus slope. It's so beautiful. It has a beautiful view of all the West Campus housing. I love to go there after classes when the weather is nice and just sit there and do homework with friends and watch the sunset and bring food and have a picnic. And it's just so beautiful and calm and like a really good stress relief from like the crazy classes.
That's important too, that balance, right? Of like you have classes and then you have places to go on campus where you can feel relaxed. So Lauren, this is a question for you. Do you feel that UPenn has that place as well, or places like that too, where like, okay, this is the stress of academia, but I can go to this place on campus to decompress and have that balance?
Yes, for sure. Something I love about Penn is the fact that like in the midst of all these random Gothic architectural buildings, there's a lot of greenery and spaces to just sprawl out on the grass and enjoy the beautiful days. Even Penn Park is a place that I like to go sometimes and just study with friends. So there are a bunch of small, little tranquil places you can wind down.
So Lauren, I feel like what you're saying is sometimes you just got to go lay in the grass. Sometimes you take a 400 level physics class and then you got to go lay in the grass.
It's only natural.
It happens. So I actually have a really good question here. I think that this is probably going to apply to all three of you. Do you feel that you are working significantly harder than your friends at other non-Ivy schools? And if you do feel like you're working significantly harder, is it worth it? While you all are thinking of your answers to that, I can say that any school you can choose to work pretty darn hard, right? College is very much there's an element of you get out of it what you put into it, right? And certainly there are more rigorous schools just like UPenn and just like Cornell. So, but at any school that you choose to go to, you can certainly put in quite a bit and work quite hard to get as much out of that education as possible. So now that I've given sort of that general answer, does anybody have an answer for that? Do you feel like you're working harder? Ileana?
So I definitely agree with everything you said. In terms of working harder than people at other schools, it's hard to compare because I've never been to those schools, so I have no idea what their work level is. But from my experience, I can say that everyone at Cornell definitely has to work very hard. In terms of whether it's worth it, I think it's worth it. I feel pretty confident in my prospects of graduate school and then having a career after that. I've also had a lot of opportunities for internships, like really good internships. So I think the hard work definitely pays off. But again, you have to decide for yourself, is it worth it to you to put in the work?
Mm-hmm. I like that answer. That's lovely. Tess or Lauren, how do you feel? I don't know if you've spoken to friends who go to different schools. Do you feel like the workload is a lot? Tess?
Yes, so to be completely honest, I feel like I haven't kept in touch with a lot of people from my high school that ended up going to different schools. And I don't have anyone from my high school that also went to UPenn, so I don't have anyone to really compare on that standard as well. But with the few friends I did keep in touch with from high school, a lot of my friends are already hardworking to begin with. So I would say oftentimes they also work pretty hard. And within UPenn, it's very much mentality of like work hard, play hard. So there are definitely kind of both extremes where it's like you have people like only studying really 24/7, and then you also have people like kind of just doing the bare minimum to get by. Not to shame those people or anything. I mean, they still end up graduating, so it worked out for them. So I would say it's really up to you how much work you want to put in and then how much you want to get out of it as well.
Lauren, do you want to add anything to that? I see you kind of nodding your head.
I would say 100% agree with Tess. As it relates to friends that went to other schools, I think like getting into college in itself is like hard work. And so for most people, they continue that into college. And I think that's a similar thing I've seen amongst students that I was friends with in high school. They're all still hardworking and probably working just as hard as I am at Penn, even though they don't go there. As it relates to students at Penn, maybe pursuing different study strategies and stuff, I agree with Tessa. There are certainly people that aren't maybe studying as much as I feel I am, but they just have a good balance, and I wish I could have that better, I guess.
How do you keep from, and this is honestly, I'm going to have these panelists answer it, but it's true of any college. How do you keep that work-life balance to where you feel like you're giving it enough to be successful in the stuff that you're studying, but you still feel like you're able to, have friends and go out and be social? And anyone can answer that.
I can sort of answer that. So I think a good thing is just like making sure you have friends that will like make you get out of your dorm room and stop studying all the time. And then it's also good to have friends that you can study with, like making friends like through your classes and like forming a study group. that was a really good way for me to meet people, especially with everything being virtual. And then also join a bunch of clubs. Like they don't have to be like the really pre-professional ones that you have to like apply to and go through multiple rounds of interviews. They can just be like fun on the side clubs. Like that's where I've made a lot of friends and just had a lot of fun moments during my freshman year.
Yeah, I don't think you could do this during the pandemic, but like try fencing club. Try something weird that you didn't think that you were interested in. So McKenna actually asked that question. What is the social scene at your schools and what ways did you find your friends? So I feel like Tess gave us a pretty good answer. Ileana or Lauren, do you have anything you want to add to that? What is the social scene at your schools and what ways did you find your friends? Study groups, for sure. Anything else? Yeah, Ileana.
So for me, I joined the Cornell synchronized skating team because I've been skating since I was 5 years old. So that was a really good fit for me. And I met a lot of people with similar interests, and we go to competitions together and hang out. So that's super fun. I also joined a sorority my sophomore year. So I made some good friends there. I ended up disaffiliating because of the pandemic, but I still am close with a lot of the girls from that. And then I also joined Alpha Phi Omega, which is the service fraternity. So I also made some good friends there.
Fantastic. Any other thoughts about that?
I met the majority of my friends now from a pre-orientation program I did at Penn. It was called Penn Arts, and I was always involved in the arts in high school. So I thought, why not get immersed in that culture at Penn? And yeah, it was a great way to just meet people who also identify with some of the interests you have, and I highly recommend. As well, I've joined clubs like Onda Latina, which is Penn's Latin dance team, and I've like never even Latin danced before. And so I had just done dance like ballet and jazz, and so going into that was, stepping out of my comfort zone in itself, and it's definitely been rewarding and giving me like a whole new group of friends that I never would have met had I never tried.
Amazing. That's really encouraging to me because I worry a little bit that, especially in the pandemic, people are thinking, oh no, I'll never get to be social again. But here these ladies are telling you, no, do things that you're interested in, or things that just sound appealing, even if you've never tried it before, or things you've been doing your whole life to find people who, are interested in the same things you're in. So don't worry, we will all be social again. It will happen. So let me ask each of you, what is your major? It is okay if you don't know yet. What is your major, and how did you figure out that that was the thing that you were interested in? What's your major and how did you find it? And while these ladies think of, oh yes, how did I come to that major? I just want to remind everyone, you can talk to us through the Q&A. I think that we can answer, each panelist can answer a question if you want to ask them about Cornell or UPenn specifically, or about their experience. But ladies, what is your major, if you know it, and how did you pick it?
Right now I'm studying, I say right now, I am studying biochemistry and minoring in neuroscience and cinema and media studies. And how I got into biochemistry, honestly, I kind of just clicked it on the college application because I liked chemistry. I did well enough. I was like, maybe I can do it for the rest of my undergraduate career, I guess. And I'm a pre-med student, so I thought it would prepare me well for the MCAT. So yeah, that was kind of my thought process for biochem.
And Lauren, you want to be a physician?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Tess, you're a rising sophomore. So what do you think?
So we don't get to declare our major until our sophomore year. But as of right now, I'm planning on majoring in environmental studies and then minoring in fine arts. And growing up, I had been like really passionate about art and science. And then when I got to college, I was like, I'm just like not going to choose between either of them. I'm just going to continue doing both of them. And the environment is definitely something I'm passionate about, especially in like our current climate crisis. So that was how I ended up deciding on both of those.
So you picked like a passion that you had sort of in the real world, and you were like,
Yes.
this is it. I'm going to solve this problem. Good, Tess. We're counting on you. Excellent. Ileana.
So my majors are similar. I'm doing plant science, and I'm also doing a minor in business. And I got into that because I always just really liked biology in high school. And I did a science research class in high school where I did a plant specific project. So I knew that I really wanted to continue with biology. And Cornell has a really good agriculture school. So that's how I got into plant science.
Amazing. What do you want to do with that?
I'm thinking of working for the USDA. I really want to go to graduate school for plant breeding.
That's amazing. Are all of so Lauren is headed to medical school. Ileana is going to go to grad school. Tess, do you have grad school on the horizon as well?
Big question. Okay. As of right now, I'm not quite sure. I think grad school is definitely something I would consider in the future. But I think right out of college, I would maybe want to work a couple years and then like decide like what type of like further education I would want to do, like law school or grad school or something. So and that's still up to change in like the 3 more years I have. So
And this is for our 3 panelists, and it's for everyone listening. Speaking from experience, there was a full decade between when I graduated from undergrad and when I graduated from graduate school, an entire 10 years. So you don't have to walk out of grad school, undergrad directly into grad school, and you don't have to go to grad school at all if it's not the right fit for you. But I do feel like these schools really open those doors for you. You all may not know the answer to this, but I'll ask it. And if you do know the answer, great. If you don't, I will give sort of the general, here is the path to applying to college answer that I know. Do all of the Ivies offer full ride scholarships? And is there a specific way we need to obtain it? Do you all know from your schools any scholarships that you all have obtained, or if they're a full ride is an option? And it's okay if you don't know the answer. I'm just wondering if you all had experience with applying for scholarships and obtaining scholarships from your school.
So I don't think any of the Ivies do merit scholarships from what I'm aware, but they do need-based financial aid. So they will give you an amount of money based on what you fill out on the FAFSA, and you definitely can get a full ride depending on what you need.
That's almost exactly my answer that I was going to give. Anything about UPenn specifically, or is that pretty much the answer at the FAFSA?
It is the answer. I would also add that at Penn, if you qualify for financial aid, you can also apply for named scholarships, which is basically just funding from donors to help finance your education. So I've found that helpful.
So the thing that I'll add to that, just sort of as a college admissions professional, is that there is money out there, right? The sticker price is almost never what you pay, right? So you want to show on your FAFSA your expected, I believe it's the family contribution. You want to be honest about that and fill that in so that they can see, you know, where your need is. And a good pro tip for applying is something called demonstrated interest. If you're really, really interested in going to Cornell, tell them, make calls to the admissions office and ask them these questions. Ask them, hey, what are some scholarships that I could pursue? Call the Office of Admissions at UPenn and say, hey, I'm really interested in going to UPenn. What are some scholarships that I could pursue? And that is true of any school that you're looking at, right? If you're looking at Pittsburgh, if you're looking at Worcester, if you're looking at NYU, show demonstrated interest, show that this is a college that you're really invested in, you want to go to, give them a call, ask them these questions, correspond with them, really dig deep into that. That's excellent. For Tess and Lauren, what were a couple of things that sold you on UPenn and have really turned out to meet your expectation?
I can answer this one. So when I was like deciding, I had narrowed it down to 2 colleges. And what came down to me for like making that decision was their fine arts departments, actually. So I'm not sure if that's really the answer this person was looking for, but UPenn, when I started like looking into their fine arts department, I surprisingly like really enjoyed it and really like fell in love with all they had to offer. And right now it has sort of lived up to my expectations. Everything, I'm not gonna hold like Zoom art classes against them,
Right.
because Zoom is not exactly the best like medium for teaching art. So I'll as of right now, it's pretty good. I've taken 2 art classes with them, and they've both still been like really fulfilling classes. Um, so hopefully, when I'm in person, it'll be even better.
Fantastic. Lauren, what sold you on UPenn?
I would say the push towards interdisciplinary studies, which sounds like a cop-out answer, but I think Penn specifically has a lot of like things in place that allow for students to really explore their multifaceted interests. Like Tess, I'm really interested in science and art and the potential interplay between the two. And I had the opportunity to participate in a medical humanities fellowship this past spring, which I didn't even know like what it was until I applied, and I definitely wouldn't have, and like if I hadn't gone to Penn, I think. And also just like the different like we have coordinated dual degree programs across schools and inter-school minors. It really just allows you to explore everything that you are interested in and not be locked into a particular field of study.
That doesn't sound like a cop-out answer at all. That sounds like an amazing, well thought out answer. Ileana, do you remember how many colleges you applied to?
So I applied early decision to Cornell, so this was the only school I applied to.
Amazing. And let me just talk about early decision and early action as well. Early action is not binding. It allows you to apply a little early and show a little bit more interest. Early decision is binding. That means that if you apply to Cornell and you are accepted, you go to Cornell. You have made a binding agreement. That's awesome. Lauren and Tess, do you remember how many colleges you applied to?
Somewhere around 8. And I didn't do
Yeah.
early action or decision for any of them. So
Yeah, 8 or 9 is about the right number. What about Lauren?
Yeah, I agree with that. I applied to 18 unnecessarily.
Yeah, 18?
Yeah.
Why?
My parents, that's all.
No, that's a lot. The Common App makes it easy to apply to a bunch of different schools. But 18 is so many. 18 is so many. You got into all 18, didn't you?
That's what I'll say. Yeah.
You're like, yes, Bess, absolutely, I did. Sure did. Fantastic. And then there's a question here that I don't think, I don't know if you all know the answer to, but I have a general answer for it. Can you receive scholarships and aid if you are considered an international student? My instinct is yes. However, I would encourage you to check with the admissions offices and check the FAFSA website because it is American government money. So if you can't use federal aid, you may be able to find other scholarships, especially international scholarships. So even if federal aid is not available to you as an international student, call the admissions offices, the financial aid offices of the schools you're interested in and see about that because I know that there is money for international students, certainly. 18, I can't get over that, 18. That's a lot. So I would love to know, what is the biggest myth or stereotype about your school? And have you found it to be true? So think about that for a little bit.
I feel like I can, even with just like a semester on campus, a lot of the stereotypes about UPenn can kind of be true. Especially with like the work hard, play hard kind of thing. It's very much like a lot of party culture on campus, even during the pandemic, which was not good at all, but we're past it. So, and then also just the stereotype of like Wharton steaks is kind of true in some cases, like to be completely honest,
What
of like
is
people
that?
in Wharton being like really mean and like very ambitious and like goal oriented and like will drop you or like step on you to get a leg up. From what I've heard and some of what I have experienced, that one is kind of true. Though I do have a friend in Morton that is very sweet and lovely. So
Lauren, please elaborate, because I saw you go like this at one point.
Yeah, I was just laughing because I was thinking the same thing. The warden, but my roommate freshman year was in Warden, and she's like the nicest person I've ever met. So they're a
And is
good.
that just an accelerated program within UPenn?
It's okay. It's the business school at Penn, and
I knew
so
that.
yeah.
Warden
So
Business
people
School.
think that. But I'd also say a stereotype about Penn students is that they're very pre-professional, and I think that in a way like rings true, especially since they're like 4 undergraduate schools that allow you to, you know, specialize as early as your undergraduate career. But it's not cutthroat, or I haven't experienced any cutthroatness even as a pre-med student. So
That's lovely. Eliana, tell me about Cornell. What's a stereotype or myth about Cornell?
So I don't think I'm aware of any stereotypes in particular. If anyone knows any though and wants to ask me about them, I know like some people think that this is probably common for all the Ivy League schools, that everyone's just studying all the time and doesn't have any time like for a social life, which I don't think is really true. I think a lot of people um, are out like doing things on the weekends, like Friday nights, like yeah, I don't think people are just constantly studying all the time and not having any fun.
Good, that work-life balance, man. And Eliana, I have a question specifically for you. What are your thoughts on Cornell's ILR school?
So my roommate is in the ILR school, and
What does
she
ILR stand for? Tell us.
International Labor Relations.
Excellent.
So that's also part of the New York State funded part of Cornell, which is the school that I'm in is also part of that, which is really great. So tuition is a lot less if you live in New York State. So yeah, my roommate is in that school and she loves it. She's doing great. She's doing an internship with Procter and Gamble right now, which is really cool. She also got to do an internship with IBM last semester. So I think it's really great and has a lot of opportunities.
That's amazing. You want to look for that too as you're applying to these colleges, looking for places that or that will give you those opportunities. So, ladies, I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to think about it, and then I'm going to answer this question about application. So, here's the question that you get a little bit of time to think about. If you were the president of your school, what would you change about it, and what do you think is the biggest challenge facing your school right now? So you all think about that while I answer this question. So I got a question that says we were advised to cast a wider net, meaning we wanted to apply to more colleges, more than 8 or 9, because of the increase of test optional in terms of your application. So that is actually something to consider. The test optional movement was fueled by the pandemic because last year, many testing sites had to cancel or push back their dates. So some students, it wasn't safe for them to take the SAT or the ACT, right? And some only got to take it once, where usually you want to take it about 2 or 3 times. And so school said, hey, we're not going to hold that against students, and we're going to go test optional for this year. Or some of them went test optional for 3 years, 5 years. Some of them are going to stay test optional. I love the test optional movement. I think it's a super brilliant way to open a lot of doors through these very gatekeepy tests, right? The SAT and the ACT tend to be very gatekeepy. However, test optional does not mean test blind. If you have competitive SAT and ACT scores, you should go ahead and send them. Now, if you are applying test optional, you may in fact want to apply to more schools than 8 or 9. 10 or 12 might be the way that you want to go. However, if you have your strong GPA and you have an SAT or an ACT score that is competitive for the school that you want to go to, what does that mean? That means that the school will give you a percentile, a range of scores, and you want to be as close to that 75th percentile as you possibly can. So if the range of scores for schools that you're applying to are 31 to 33 on the ACT, you want to be as close to that 33 as possible. If you have a strong GPA and your scores are competitive and you know you're going to submit them, you don't have to burn out on 18 schools, Lauren. So yes, if you know you're going to be applying to test optional, you may want to apply to more. If you know you have a competitive SAT or ACT score, 8 or 9 is probably a pretty good number. Now, it depends on each student. Talk to your school guidance counselor. They might have a little bit more insight for you, but in general, that's an okay number to stick to. So now that I've vamped about that, okay, Lauren, if you were president, what would you change?
I think I would allocate more funds or just attention in general to other undergraduate schools than Wharton, because I think they get a lot of hype, which is great. The business school is amazing, but I mean, we have a pretty good nursing school as well, and I think they should get more hype, even the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences and the College of Arts and Sciences, which has the most students, but probably the least attention. So,
Oh, what a good answer. Tess, what do you think? If you were president, what would you change?
I think Lauren's answer is very good. I think there are quite a few things I would change if I was president. One of the first would be getting those schools more funding by cutting down Amy Gutman's salary a bit. Amy Gutman is our president, and she gets paid a very large amount, which I don't necessarily agree with sometimes. Another thing I would change is that UPenn likes to say they fight for climate change a lot, but then they're still investing in a lot of fossil fuel companies. So I would also want to divest from a lot of those. That would be great. That would be awesome.
Good answer. So you're saying the first thing you would do as president is take a pay cut?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Ileana, Cornell, if you were in charge of Cornell, what would you change?
So I really like Tessa's answer about the divesting from fossil fuels, because Cornell also has the same mentality but same action. So I think that's really great. I would also change the dorming situation. There's kind of a shortage of on-campus housing, so I would definitely build more dorms. I'd also renovate them because it's very variable in terms of the quality. So my freshman year, I was in the oldest dorm, had no air conditioning, as most college dorms don't, but had a lot of bugs, a lot of dust, mold. But then there are other freshman dorms that have air conditioning, that are brand new, no bugs, and you pay the same amount for every dorm. So I would definitely improve some of the older dorms and then also add new ones so it isn't such a competition to get housing.
That is just so the story of it's so variable. Well, so I guess a follow-up question for you, Penn and Cornell. Do most people live on campus? Do most people live in houses around campus? What is the housing situation like? And Tess, you might not know the answer to this because you've been virtual this last year. So Lauren, what was it like for you?
Well, I know starting this past year, I think, or maybe it's this year, freshmen and sophomores have to stay on campus. And then you'll find at pretty much every university, as you get older, less people are on campus. I personally am planning to stay on campus all 4 years. I'm actually an RA this year because I loved my freshman year dorm experience in K-Check, which I'll plug. But yeah, there's a lot of variability in the housing that you can get. It's really just what fits you most.
Fantastic. Tess, I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I was required to live on campus for a semester. I was pretty happy with my dorm. I lived in the quad, which is the very picturesque dorm photos you see when you look up pictures of UPenn. Though I will say I had a few bugs as well. So get raid spray when you move into your dorm. It's very useful.
Gross, and thank you.
Yeah.
What about Cornell, Ileana?
So I lived on campus my freshman and sophomore years. My freshman year, the dorm was super old, as I said, not a good experience. Sophomore year, though, I lived in one of the newer dorms on West Campus, so it was really nice, and I had a great experience then. But for Cornell, because there is a shortage of housing, it's almost impossible to get on campus housing your junior and senior years. So my junior year, I lived off campus in a house, and I'm also going to live there my senior year.
Lauren, I was an RA for almost my entire undergrad career, and I loved it. So have fun with that. It's really great. Highly recommend it. That's resident assistant, and you can become a resident assistant at most universities after your freshman year. It's either resident assistant or resident advisor, but the acronym is usually RA. And you live on a hall dorm, and you help facilitate programming for your residents, which was a really cool and fun experience. They paid for my housing, and then they gave me like a stipend that covered like one book. Right. So I don't know what it is at UPenn or Cornell. Sometimes they'll usually pay for your housing, and then sometimes you get like a little bit of money, not a lot of bit of money though. But that was really cool because then I didn't have to worry about housing. Still had to worry about food though. Still had to do that. I really like this question from anonymous attendee for Ileana. Is Cornell a politically and socially active campus?
I would say it definitely is. There's a lot of protests that go on in the school. There's a lot of environmental protests, racial equality protests, political protests. So I would definitely say that it is socially and politically adept.
What goes, and you might not know the answer to this, and that's okay, but what goes on in Cornell besides the protesting? Are there any sort of action steps that are taken towards social justice?
Yeah, so recently with the pandemic, they had a fund, a mutual aid fund where they raised money for students that were that got hit hard by the pandemic. Things like that. There's also the student assembly that makes decisions as to how to allocate funds. I know with COVID, our student activity fund couldn't be used, so they donated all of the money from that to a Black Lives Matter campaign.
Excellent. Fantastic. So there's action. I love that. Laura and our test, what about UPenn? What is the social or political climate like? What's the activism climate like?
I would say like UPenn, the college itself, like the faculty and staff and everything can sometimes be not as like liberal as the students are, especially with some recent news that came out of like the UPenn Museum itself holding remains of a MOVE bombing victim, which was a bombing in like 1980 or something. I might be wrong on that, of this Black residential home. And they had just kept the remains at the UPenn Museum, and there were a lot of protests the semester that I was on campus, and they ended up like actually turning over the remains, which was nice to see, though they shouldn't have had them in the first place.
Lauren, do you have any thoughts on that specifically, or other activism?
I agree. I think Penn students are pretty vocal about their concerns about just politics or Penn's placement in the greater Philadelphia and like what we can do for Philadelphia residents. And I mean, I like coming from a background that wasn't, very socially activist involved. I've like learned a lot from my classmates, and I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. I remember at my campus when I was an undergrad, there was a cross put into the chapel, and the student body went, "No, this is for any kind of worship of any religion. There should not be a Christian denomination symbol." And we held a protest, and they removed it. How this is for everybody, I think. How accessible do you find the professors at your school? Are you able to talk to them and build a relationship with them? And are they able to help you when you need it? And Ileana, I can start with you. Talk to me about your relationship with the professors at Cornell, and are they there for you and able to help you with your curriculum?
Yeah, I would definitely say that they are very accessible and very friendly and easy to talk to. The majority of them. Now, there are a few that you kind of can't get in touch with, and I'm sure like that's common with some schools. There's just some professors that just it's hard to talk to, but the majority of ones I've had experience with have been really great. My orgo professor freshman year, I was not doing well in that class. I struggled so much. I ended up going to her office to talk to her like almost once a week, at least once a week. And she made time for me, had personal conversations with me about how I could improve. And stuff like that. So I would say they're really accessible and really willing to work with you and help you.
So for the most part, very accessible, but there's a couple of grumpy Gus's because that's just true in life, no matter where you are. Laura, what about you, Penn? Talk to me about your relationship with your professors.
They're so very accessible, like Eliana said. I found that even in like bigger lecture classes, like my physics class or organic chemistry, I've been able to make relationships with my professors either through going to office hours or just emailing. And honestly, like people say, creating that good relationship is important, and I 100% agree. I've had professors like bump up a grade just because I asked, because I don't know, like there would be a reason, but like having that relationship beforehand definitely was helpful. And I think at times they're even nicer than they should be, because I remember I took an Egyptian class and my professor was like this, like he's like very lauded in his, you know, in his field of study, as like universities that, or professors at these types of universities are. And I'm like citing you in my paper. I found him like in an article. I'm like, why do you respond to my email so fast when you're like so amazing? So I don't know. They're just like really nice for like the, I don't know.
So what you're saying is, everyone, this is obviously the takeaway of what Lauren just said. Ask for an A and they'll just hand it to you. No.
No.
But that's actually really cool. That's great that like you three obviously go to these schools that are very prestigious and have these lauded and noted scholars that are working there, and they're still making time for you to feel like you feel like they're really invested in your education. I love that. Tess, have you had a similar experience? I think it's probably been harder for you since you've been virtual.
I would definitely say it was a bit tougher to like build a connection with your professors when everything was virtual. Though I will say, like in my smaller classes, I was able to have like a really good relationship with my professors. Like I had this one, it was 4 people in the class and the professor, and it was this Italian class I was taking, and the professor was amazing, and we all like it was a great experience and it was so much fun. Like it was very much harder sometimes because there weren't as many people to like default to when she needed someone to answer a question. But she would like mess around with us and stuff and like banter with us and everything, and it was fun.
Actually, like be a person, your professors and
Yes.
people.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. So this is a question for everyone, and take your time, think about it. When you were applying, what do you think really made you stand out in your college application? Like, oh, Bess, that's such a hard question.
I think I have an answer for this one. I think what I'm planning to like study made me stand out quite a bit. The fact that I'm doing both art and science really helped me a lot. And then also, I'm from Arkansas, which like you don't hear of a lot of people from Arkansas. And most of like the people from Arkansas go to in-state schools. So out of state schools don't get as many applicants from Arkansas. So I think that also helped me stand out a little bit in a way because they were like, oh, with this girl, we can say we have someone from all 50 states now.
So you're not saying move to Arkansas and then apply from Arkansas.
Yeah,
But you are saying something like that might help.
I would not really suggest Arkansas as a place to live.
Excellent.
Living costs are very low here. So if you
But you're
want
saying Pennsylvania and
housing,
New York might be a little better. Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts. Excellent. Lauren or Eliana, what do you think when you were applying really made you stand out on your college application?
I think for me, it was the essays. So I applied specifically into the plant science major on the application. So I wrote my essay specifically about plant science and why I wanted to do plant science and my past experiences with it. So I think that really helped me stand out because like I don't think there's too many people going into that field. So yeah, definitely
You
that.
felt you were singular in your interest and your passion.
Mhm.
Fantastic. Lauren, what made you stand out?
I think for me, it might have been being a well-rounded student because I remember when I was applying, I'd always heard like you could be a spike student, be really good at something, or just like do a bunch of things and not fail your classes. And I think I fell into that category, I guess. I did like golf and yearbook and dance and music. Like, so I just did random things. And I think maybe it looked good on paper, probably better than it was in real life.
Well, Lauren, let me ask you this. Did you just do a lot of random things one off, or did you have a handful of things that you really committed to and excelled at?
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction. A lot of them had been carried on through like middle school and high school, and I was like really involved in them, spent a lot of hours in them, and I think that's what showed my genuine interest and not just ticking off a box. So yeah.
Thank you for saying that, Lauren, because you're actually segueing me nicely into this next question from Jen. What were some helpful high school extracurricular activities that contributed to college acceptances? Now, you all can think about that. What were the helpful high school extracurricular activities that contributed to your admissions? And while they think about that, I just want to preface this by going off of what Lauren said. She said, oh, you can be a spike student or you can be like a well-rounded student. College admissions offices want to see the story of you. So for example, Ileana actually gave them a very cohesive story. She had strong grades and she said, this is my passion. This is the person that I will be when I show up to Cornell. I'm really, really driven to do this thing. This is the story of me. And Lauren, I think, is also telling something similar. What she didn't do was just bounce around and spend one semester at every club. Rather, she did have quite a few things going on, but she was committed to all of those things. So she is the student who did dance, I think you said, right? Or she was the student who did leadership, or she was the student who played saxophone or whatever. I'd be amazed if you play saxophone and I just guessed that, right? Did I? No? Okay, it's okay. But she said, I started with something in elementary school and middle school and I stuck with it. So a cohesive story of you. It is way less important to just check boxes, as Lauren was saying, and way more important to show you, I am really passionate about kendo. I am really passionate about swimming. I am really passionate about community service, and stick to that and tell the story of you. So now that I've gone on that spiel, I will now let you all answer this question. Tess, what do you think? What were some extracurriculars that you thought were helpful for you?
As Lauren was talking about earlier, I also had like multiple different clubs that I was very committed to throughout like high school and middle school. So I thought that really helped. Like I was on the swim team, I was in art club, I was in Model UN, just like having a variety of things that you are involved in and not just picking like one certain club and only doing that. Because while like it's great that you're really passionate about that one thing, like it's always good to have like a diverse set of skills and a diverse perspective on things.
Well, Tess, how long did you swim for?
uh well, I swam since I was a kid, really. All of my older sisters had done it, and so automatically my parents also put me on the swim team.
There you
So
have it. How long were you in Model UN for?
well, 10th grade to 12th grade, because we actually didn't have a Model UN club at my school. My friends and I actually started it at my school. So,
Ooh, that probably helped.
yeah.
That's impressive.
Got to
So
put
you were as
co-founder
dedicated
of Model UN on my application. So
Fantastic. Good. Ileana, what were your extracurriculars that you feel like really helped you?
So I was on the skating team, and not as part of my high school, it was outside. But I also was a peer leader for the freshmen at my high school. And I also was a volunteer tutor for children.
Wow, that's awesome. That shows athletics, leadership, and academics. So that's kind of a triple threat there. Lauren, let me just ask you specifically, what do you think you did for the longest? Because we know you did everything.
Okay, it would be between music, which I played piano since elementary school and violin since middle school, and then golf, which I played since middle school.
So Lauren, do you like have like a TARDIS or like a time turner that let you do all these things and also apply to 18 schools?
How? I told my friends all the time. I couldn't do it now. So
Why do you, what's the difference between doing it now and doing it when you were 16, 17, 18?
Maybe the fact that I woke up earlier back then. That might be it.
Everyone, I just have to words of wisdom for your college life, and Tess and Ileana and Lauren can tell me if I'm right. 8 a.m. is going to feel like 7 a.m. 9 a.m. is going to feel like 8 a.m. 10 a.m. is going to feel like 9 a.m. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, I took a 9 a.m. class last semester, and I can attest to that. Though
like
it
never.
did help out that it was just on Zoom, and so I could like do it from my bed. So
I think I successfully avoided my entire undergrad career. I successfully avoided taking any class before 9. And if I remember correctly, freshman year, my Friday class, the only class I had on Friday, started at 4 p.m. Did anybody I know I was so talented. Did anybody else get that kind of luck in scheduling? Tell us,
my
Tess.
first semester, I didn't have any classes on Friday. Though it didn't really matter because I was just at home.
Right. So it's not like you get to go hang out on campus
nice.
or anything. Ileana or Lauren, what has your scheduling been like?
For me, I had to take an 8 a.m. class my freshman fall. And so like since then, anything has just been better. So I don't really have high expectations as long as it's not 8 a.m.
That bar got real low right off the bat. And you're like, anything after 8, I am game.
Yes.
I love it. Ileana, do you have good scheduling experiences?
I also had to take an 8 a.m., but last semester, not a good experience. I felt like 6 a.m. Even though I woke up at 6:30 a.m. every day for high school, I just could not do it. So I wouldn't do that unless you're a morning person or you have to. But my Fridays have been pretty good. I usually only have one class on Fridays, which is really nice.
That is really nice. Yeah, it is interesting. High school classes start at, 7:30, and college classes still and you're like, oh, I did it for 4 years. I could totally do it. College is a different beast. Everything feels so much earlier than it is. Everyone, get your 8 hours, do it. Sleep is so important for cognitive development, and your brain is still developing well into your 20s. So please, please get enough sleep. If you remember nothing else from this, remember that Lauren applied to 18 colleges, and remember to get enough sleep. I just have one quick question here. Are there still athletics? And the answer is yes. The pandemic did mean a lot of athletic programs did suffer and take a back seat, but I don't think either Cornell or UPenn had any athletic programs canceled on them. I think that is true. That athletics are definitely still a thing. And then does anybody want to share, just in the last few minutes that we have left, any experience with studying abroad?
I mean, I'm just a sophomore still, or rising sophomore, but I am planning on studying abroad. And I would say at UPenn, like my advisor has been really helpful about it, of like, because I mentioned it in like our last meeting, and she like walked me through all the steps to like find out like, here are the different programs you can like filter your search by, here are like the different countries you can filter your search by, and then they all give like really pretty detailed explanations of like, this is like the foreign language level you should be if you want to be in this study abroad program. I would say the one fault with it is that some of the study abroad programs are like only specific to like Wharton or like a certain major, which can sometimes be annoying when you're like trying to sort through all of them. But other than that, I would say my advisor, especially at UPenn, has been really helpful in that process and like planning it out for my future.
So you definitely felt like you had the tools that you needed to make that plan.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Ileana, did you have any experience with study abroad?
So I wanted to study abroad my junior year, but with the pandemic, I obviously couldn't. And Cornell usually only allows people to study abroad their junior year. So I've kind of missed the window, unfortunately. But right now, I'm just glad to even get to be on campus because I feel like I lost 2 years of that. So
I'm so grateful now that the three of you get to, go back and have a safe on-campus experience now. So that's excellent. I'm very, very glad for you all for that. Lauren, what about you? Any experience with going abroad or applying to go abroad?
I personally haven't. I had a friend who, or I have a friend who planned to go last summer. We have like a theater experience in London. It didn't pan out, but like there are a bunch of cool opportunities you can do for study abroad.
And then let me ask you all this. Do you feel that your campus has put in good safety measures to combat the pandemic? And when you go back to campus, do you feel that you will be safe?
I, oh, okay. I thought it was pretty safe. I went midway through this past semester and we had like bi-weekly uh, COVID tests and, masks obviously had to be worn. I mean, I know now they're kind of weaning off of those guidelines. I don't know about fall, but this past semester was good.
Good, excellent. Tess?
Yeah, for the upcoming fall semester, I'm pretty sure UPenn is like requiring all returning students who are going to be on campus to get the vaccine. Last I heard. If I'm wrong, I'm
I
sorry.
think that is correct.
Yeah, I want to say it's right.
Yeah,
That's
correct.
So that definitely assures me a lot. Though the semester I was on campus, I will say I wish they had handled it better because though they did give us like bi-weekly tests, as a freshman, it didn't really feel like they were giving us many ways we could like connect and hang out with other freshmen safely. Like they really just wanted us to stay in our dorm rooms all the time and not go outside at all, which obviously isn't gonna happen.
But what if we're outside 6 feet apart with masks on?
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that a lot of campuses are requiring it. They're treating it much like you have to have
Like
other shots as well before you go in. Like you have to have, I can't remember exactly which shots you have to have, but you have to be up on your immunizations. So they're just adding the COVID-19 vaccine to that list of immunizations that you have to get to go to college, barring being immunocompromised. Ileana, do you feel like the safety measures are good and coming back in the fall, you'll feel pretty good to be on campus?
Yeah, I'll feel good. Cornell is also requiring everyone to get vaccinated. And they're planning to be fully in person, no masks. So I think as long as everyone is vaccinated, it should be really safe.
Amazing. I love that. I love that these plans are being put in place and I can see it, right? I can see the end of the tunnel for coming out of it. Fantastic. So ladies, just with our last few minutes, I'll give you a moment just to think about any words of advice that you have to someone applying to your school. You can think of it as something that I wish I had done or something that worked out really, really well for me in their college application process, just some parting words. And while you all are thinking about those parting words, I'm just going to show everyone, thank you so much for joining us. This is Apple Ruth Tutoring Services that is bringing you this AMA series. We have several more coming up. You can check that out on our website, www.appleruth.com. We are currently running a promotion on SAT and ACT test prep. You can save $1,000. You can actually buy hours now at this discounted rate and use them at any time. So please check us out at appleruth.com/summer. So ladies, words of advice to someone applying to colleges in the near future, what would you tell them?
My advice would be to, before you write any college specific essay, please scour the website for like a week or so, because I can promise you that there are so many opportunities, so many niche programs or majors or minors that you're probably missing just by doing, a quick look through, that you could definitely write about in your essay and probably enhance your understanding of the school.
Amazing. Yeah, really do your research into the school. Excellent advice. Ileana or Tess? Ileana.
Yeah, going off what Lauren said, I would definitely take time and think about yourself and what you want out of a college experience. Think about what you'd be interested in studying, how you envision yourself, like whether you can see yourself being in a big city, a small town. Yeah, before you even do any of like the essay writing, test prep, just think about where you think you would be happy.
I love that. Do what's right for you. Be happy. You want to be happy for 4 years or more at this institution. Pick the one that's right for you. Tess, what do you think? Parting words.
What Lauren and Ileana said were both really useful. And also like when you're writing your essays and everything, something that was helpful for me is like finding out, what's weird about you, like what's unique to you, and then capitalize on that. Like how I'm interested in both art and science, like that's a weird interest. Like you don't see that very often. But that really helped me in writing my essays and like setting me apart from other applicants.
I love that. So it sounds like do your research and be true to yourself. I love that. To our panelists, thank you so, so much for joining us this evening and sharing your wisdom and your experience. Appleworth Tutoring Services, we specialize in the SAT and the ACT test prep, academic prep, executive functioning coaching. But something that we really, really like to be able to do is help you on this college application journey and bring you these programs like this MMA series so that you get a look behind the curtain and you get some insight into the journey and you feel like it's just less stressful. And I really hope that these three panelists have shared with you some really, really helpful things that make you feel like, okay, this is doable. I can do this. This is not a problem. And I want everyone to remember that it's just a part of the story of you. It's just a part of your journey. Everything is going to work out. I want you all to stay very, very safe. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure, and you have a good night.